Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
Sometimes the scariest people are the ones that live in your home. Hey everybody, welcome back to Crime Over Cocktails. I'm Tiffany, your host, and today I'm here with Todd Boczkowski, resiliency coach and also a son of a serial killer. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me on, and it's Boczkowski. I saw you. So it's Boczkowski. It's okay. Everybody butchers it, so I'm pretty used to it by now.
I even did the Google Translate.
Did you? You're the first person that actually probably even admitted to using Google Translate.
I did it because I'm like, I'm going to nail this. How did you become a resiliency coach? What brought all this upon? I mean, obviously the background.
Well, I became a resiliency coach mainly because of all the different types of traumas that, I've been exposed to throughout my life. And obviously, the biggest one is regarding my childhood and my father killing my mother and my stepmother. So that has left a lasting impression, obviously, throughout life. And, it's so true of the moniker that time heals all wounds. And like for some traumas, it takes a lifetime. And that has been so much the case for me, where I am now, almost 40 years old now. And I'm just now getting to the point where, I have gotten to a very good place, a very healthy place in all aspects of my life. But that has come at a price of doing a lot of inner work, a lot of work on myself. I'm also fortunate enough that, I have a lot of time to work on myself. I'm, not married. I don't have kids. I don't have a lot of other obligations that, so many other people have. So it's really a testament to, me working on myself and doing the things that I need to do that.
Absolutely. I think everyone needs to put themselves first, especially when you've had a very traumatic experience, because you need to heal within before you can ever give out.
Yeah. And I mean, it came to a point for me where, I came to this realization that if I don't actually figure things out for myself, I may not be around, at 50 years old, at 55. And I'm very well aware of the statistics of not only people that come from a very traumatic background, but also children that come from a very traumatic upbringing and background. And there's a lot of things that can be connected to trauma. And so I started to see that, to experience that myself. And, it came to a point where, if I don't get a handle on that for nobody else except for me, I may be, staring down the barrel of a shortened life. And unfortunately, that does happen more often than not.
Especially because you were in the military as well, too, right?
Yes. So at 18, I joined the military, and I actually go back and forth. It was a very good decision, a very smart decision on my part at that time. I think that, it kept me out of trouble. It kept me out of, the typical troubles that, one can find themselves in. It kept me on a straight and narrow path, but also at the same time, it also brought me into, more trauma, and it brought my childhood trauma to the surface. And so by the time I got out of the military, I was like 28, 29 years old. And basically the majority of my life has been nothing but filled with trauma. And so now here I am at basically 30 years old, trying to restart my life, trying to figure out that piece out of it, is a lot in itself. And then on top of that, you still have to deal with all these different traumas and you still have to work through all of those things. So, for me, it was quite a lot. And going through a lot of my work, I actually started to recognize part of the reason as to why the military was even attractive to me in the very first place. I think a lot of people that come from trauma, they're used to the trauma, the stress, the chaos that actually repeats. It's kind of like an addiction cycle itself. So there actually is a thing called stress addiction. And so, you get used to that stress and that chaos, and it's almost like it's normal. I do believe that was in part why the military was attractive to me, was that aspect of it. And then on the other end of it was, I guess you could say, growing up, I had such a yearn for feeling normal, being normal. And the military was a way for me to actually achieve that. Because when you go into the military, everybody starts as one. It doesn't matter, what your background is, where you grew up, sex, age, gender, heck, even, for a period of time, your sexual orientation, none of that matters. Everybody's starting from square one. And so it was nice for me to experience that, because for me, I felt like the majority of my life, I felt like a huge fish out of water, so to speak.
I think a lot of people can identify with that. And it's kind of nice to go somewhere where maybe people didn't understand, or they didn't know your story. They didn't know your background. So it might have been refreshing to you, kind of like a clean slate.
Yeah, it was. It was. And, I kind of controlled what I could at that point in time. And I wasn't so aware of it from another perspective, if that makes sense. And maybe I'm saying that the wrong way, but I think because I grew up here in Pittsburgh, and, my stepmother's death was here. There was, media here. I was always kind of self-conscious a little bit about who knew of my story, who knew what, and what did they know, what did they think about me, and all of that.
Well, they shouldn't have thought anything wrong about you, because you clearly did not do anything wrong.
I know. and that right there, that took, many years of me figuring out and working through and all of that stuff as well.
Are you looking for your next true crime podcast? Do you crave stories that have mystery and suspense? Well, look no further. Introducing Love and Murder, the podcast that dives deep into the world of relationships gone horribly wrong. Every week, I take you on a journey through the dark side of love, where passion turns into obsession, family becomes enemies, and romance turns to murder. So why should you listen to Love and Murder? Because this is not just another true crime podcast. We're your partners in crime, your storytellers, and your weekly dose of suspenseful entertainment. So what are you waiting for? Join the LAM community, www.murderandlove.com. That's Love and Murder backwards, murderandlove.com. See you soon.
How old were you when your mom was taken?
I was 5. Nearly 6. So my mother and my stepmother's death were pretty close to each other.
November 4th, 1990 and November 7th, 1994.
Yes, and November 14th is my birthday. And so, and then, you add in Veterans Day is the 11th. So literally, the first half of November can be such an emotional roller coaster for me. And so, but yeah, I was 5. nearly 6. And then my stepmother, I was 9, nearly 10.
What was his fascination with November?
I couldn't tell you. I wish I knew. There were so many times growing up, and even as I got older, like if it wasn't for Thanksgiving, I probably would have elected to wipe November off the calendar because, I mean, it's just another reminder of what I had gone through. And so, yeah, it's definitely odd. And that was something that, I had even kind of blamed my father for was, why did you have to do this so close to, my birthday on both occasions? I mean, it's just such an odd and bizarre, I guess, situation to be in.
Absolutely. I can totally understand that. Like, there's 12 months out of the year. You got to pick right in between me both times. But, I mean, that just goes to show that he was obviously had a narcissistic personality and he wasn't thinking about anybody else but himself.
No, and I totally agree. For a long period of time, I just thought that my father was, this person that I never really saw. And I guess that's probably what is so surprising for people to hear is that there was absolutely zero violence whatsoever in our house growing up. Now, in my, upcoming memoir, I do talk about, possible abuse and things of that nature, but I'll save that for people to read. But from the outside looking in, it's that, you never would have guessed that this could have happened. And I've even mentioned a number of times, and I know how bad this is going to, I guess, come across in some ways, but it actually would have been much better for me mentally if I would have seen my father beating the crap out of my mother, because it would have made sense. Like I would have been able to connect the dots, especially as I have gotten older. I would have been able to say, okay, that's not right. Oh, that could explain what happened. Whereas at the time of my father's arrest, we were a church-going family. We went to church every single Sunday. Both my mother and stepmother were heavily involved in the church. We were a family that the TV show The Simpsons was actually barred from our house. We were not allowed to watch The Simpsons because me and my siblings acted out a scene from The Simpsons and pretty much embarrassed our parents. And so, they're like, okay, you're not allowed to watch that anymore. So, looking back, it's kind of like, wait a minute, I'm not allowed to say bad words. I can't even watch The Simpsons, but yet somebody thinks that my father killed somebody and that person is my mother. Like, it's literally like, what planet am I on? It's like, how do you, those images could not be further from what I was experiencing at the time,
Oh, absolutely. So just to kind of paint a picture. So back November 4th, 1990, your mother was found dead in a bathtub.
Yes.
Then November 7th, 1994, your stepmother was found dead in a hot tub.
Yeah.
So did you just think he had like the worst luck?
Honestly, I didn't perceive it that way. It was almost like this, how can this be happening again? Like I didn't view it as he had the worst luck. It was like, how is this happening? And so, and I guess to kind of backtrack a little bit, like at 5 years old, after my mother's death, at 5 years old, I couldn't even really comprehend death. So I had to be told point blank that my mother is not coming back, that she is in heaven. Like that's how like basic people had to get with me for me to actually understand it. And then when my father eventually met my stepmother, and he started bringing her around. And of course, if you look up and you would see both pictures, they have very striking similarities in terms of looks. And so for some people, like that, would freak people out, or, it was creepy and whatnot. But for me, it was actually very comforting, because I was told that my mother wasn't coming back. And here I was standing in front of a woman who literally looked almost identical to her, and in many ways had a lot of similarities in how she lived her life as well. So, for me, it was very comforting.
I could totally get that. It's kind of like your security.
A missing piece of you, it was gone. And here's another, perhaps a slanted example is, everybody's been broken up with in their life, and you lose the love of your life, and then in walks in this other person that looks similar to the person that you love, but that's over with, and you're like, hey, I got another shot. Right? So I guess in a roundabout way, like that could be a very similar experience as to what I was feeling at the time, although very slanted. But that could be how someone could relate to how I was feeling at that time.
Well, you're also so young. Were you the youngest of your siblings?
Yes, I am the youngest.
Now, have they accepted what has happened as well? Because I do believe I've read that you guys were split for a really long time.
I wouldn't know if we were split, but I will say that, I have a very clear and open relationship with my siblings. And, we're still very close as we can be for all three of us living in 3 different cities. And so we do talk, we do converse, but at the same token, if they want to share, their journey, or if they have a relationship with, my father, that's up to them. But given everything that, I have said, and I have, come across, and what I have done, it wouldn't be out of the realm of the possibility for them to feel the same way. And, it also wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for my siblings to still have a relationship with my father. For me, over the years, I have learned that, it's not necessarily my place to share kind of like where they are with things. You know what I mean?
Oh, completely. I completely understand that. So you do not have any contact with your father?
No. The last time that I had a conversation with him, I conversed with him one last time and actually sent him a letter. It was a very lengthy letter. And I talk about this, again in my book, but I was at a point where I really needed to kind of just let some things go. I would say half of the letter is very like anger driven. And then the second half of the letter, it's very more like I wanted to let go of that anger. And so I actually did something that I never thought that I would do. And I forgave him. I forgave him for literally everything. And, and I think that was another turning point, another thing that I needed to do for my own personal healing journey was forgiveness. And I think a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions when it comes to forgiveness. And, I also didn't say that, what he did was okay. And I also was very firm in what I wanted from him. Like, just because I'm forgiving him doesn't mean I want a relationship with him, doesn't mean that, I want anything from him really. So, I left it at that. And I looked at and I viewed that letter as the last piece of correspondence that I would have with him for the rest of my life. And that's kind of how I viewed it. If I could have one last conversation, what would that be? What would that be like? What would that look like? And so that was kind of like the the foundations of how I began that last letter and that last correspondence.
He never responded? Or did you put in the letter, I don't want a response?
I sent the letter. I sent the letter and I provided a fake return address. So, he couldn't send it back to me. But through the grapevine, I do believe he got it. And so he has respected my wishes in terms of, not contacting me. And so that's that.
Well, I think that's amazing that you were able to do that, because I'm like the same way. I need to write things. If I can write a letter and express everything, I just feel better. I feel I got everything out. You can't be interrupted. And it's all out there, black and white. And so I think that's a powerful tool that people don't realize.
It's so interesting because, as I move down, the rabbit hole of, personal development and healing, there's actually an exercise, a healing exercise that is very, very similar to what I did of writing a letter. And it's basically called the letter burning exercise. And, you write out a letter to, somebody that, perhaps they wronged you, or you have some kind of negative emotion still with this person or associated with this person. And, and you write down, your emotions and what you feel. You also write down, the lessons that you have learned or gained from that person. And then at the very end, instead of sending the letter like I did, you actually burn the letter. And that burning of the letter represents that you're burning those negative emotions away.
Yes, I love burning shit. It's therapeutic.
Tiffany's a pyro, huh?
No. So how long have you been a coach for now?
I would say a little bit over a year.
Okay, very nice. I know you have a program outlined and everything. It's very exciting. Why don't you tell us about it?
So actually I have a, few different programs. So, my one program is called the Nervous System Bootcamp. And so basically it outlines how an individual can regulate their nervous system. And one of the things that I learned, and it was just so profound for me, was learning how our nervous system affects our everyday way of life. And this isn't just for people with, trauma or unresolved trauma or come from a background with trauma. And, and I have a new meaning of the word trauma, but, the nervous system affects you in everyday way of life. And so the nervous system can be put into stress mode. And so in that stress mode is actually how the moniker PTSD, post-traumatic stress, it actually gets developed. Post-traumatic stress develops because someone's body is continuously in stress mode. It's very important to learn how to get out of stress mode. There's all different types of tools and techniques and, different things that you can do that help you get out of stress mode. That's basically what, the Nervous System Bootcamp does. Kind of gives you a good roundabout explanation of how the nervous system works, first of all. And then, of course, tips and tricks and things like that.
Well, yeah, if your body's constantly in like fight or flight mode, it doesn't have the chance to just relax.
And I mean, can consider this. I mean, we have these words that are so popular in pop culture now, like, triggered and, being a Karen, right? But in theory, when you kind of think about it, when somebody is being a Karen, they're actually being triggered in some way. And being triggered goes back to, something happened in their life that created this negative emotion. And that negative emotion is tied to stress.
Very interesting. Look at you teaching me shit. What are your other programs?
Other high-level coaching programs where, I literally take people through like clearing out, like childhood wounds, things like that. Also some, if you're familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, so basically like how to reprogram the mind, the unconscious mind, and I've used techniques for me to, for instance, like stop eating certain foods. My go-to comfort food was like pizza. And, pizza is literally probably, a very horrible comfort food. But for me, like I was addicted to it almost. And so I haven't had pizza in, I don't know, like 9-10 months, something like that. Not even a slice. I haven't thought about it. I haven't craved it. It literally makes me want to puke now, and that's because I performed a self-hypnosis technique on myself where I actually made that change. So, and that's how powerful some of these are. If you could get rid of your number one, comfort food, what would that do for you, in your life? What would that do for your fitness and diet goals and things like that?
Right. Can I make myself want to eat vegetables?
Well, actually, how the technique works is, you take a food that you like and you basically make it, disgusting. So,
Gotcha. So you can't make something disgusting good.
sort of, yeah, in a roundabout way.
Gotcha. You also have a book, My Two Angels, Turning Tragedy into Triumph.
Yes.
Is that the book that you're talking about
So
that's coming out?
Should be coming out March, April-ish of 2024. And so that's almost 4 years in the making. So, and really excited about that. I did a really great job of going back, and it has been therapeutic for me. I got through a lot of writing during like the whole COVID, and I actually got, I would say like 75% of my first draft done, and I didn't like it. So I actually went out and hired somebody to actually help me. I basically had to reteach myself like how to write. And so, it's one thing to write for like term papers and, school and college and things like that, but they don't teach you how to write like this. Like, how I wanted my book was I wanted to be able to take somebody on an emotional journey. Like I want people to feel and experience some of the things that I was experiencing. And so for me, I had to learn how to write like that. And so that took time, and it took practice too. So, but no, I'm very, very happy with it so far. And, it is in the publishing phase, and, actually coming up in a few weeks, I'm going to be, giving an interview that's going to be used in like the in the launch phase of it. So really excited about it, and can't wait for people to read it. So the reviews that I have gotten from people that have read the manuscript was, like, holy crap, like, it's definitely like a page turner, which is interesting because I've gotten very good at leaving people on like a cliffhanger on at the end of chapters. So it kind of forces you to continue reading. A friend of mine who read the manuscript, and she was like, Todd, like I'm not even really a book reader, but my husband's actually upset with me because I've been putting off watching our shows because I want to keep reading your book. And I'm just like, well, that's a good thing.
Oh, that's great. It's a good sign.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited for it.
You should be. That's a huge accomplishment. And I've had a lot of guests that say how therapeutic it is to actually get it all on paper and tell your story.
It is. And I think that, another aspect of healing and something that I've also worked on is, letting go of, what other people think and the judgments from other people. And, we can be our own worst critics and our own worst enemies. And, and I think that, when you write a book like this, a memoir, and you're sharing some very intimate, some very traumatic things in one's life, because there are things in here that, quite frankly, I've never told outside of maybe like 5 people. And so, nobody knows that. And, to be able to share that with the world. And when you kind of sit back and think about it, it's so like freeing. It's so, what's the word? Liberating. There we go. What can't I do if I could share this aspect of my life with the world? And I don't feel any shame over it. I don't care what people think. Imagine what else you can do,
Anything you put your mind to.
Exactly.
That's what they say. When you're vulnerable and you put it all out there, it's just like, like it's done. Nothing left.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how I feel.
Good. That means it definitely served its purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do hope that, people take some things out of it, some things that, they can use for themselves, and they can relish in, me, overcoming a lot and what I had to do to get to where I am now.
Right. And you're not done. This is a lifelong journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And it may not even be my one and only book either. So even my own writing coach is like, you definitely have like 2 or 3 books inside you. Like we actually had to take things out, because I'd done so much. They're like, yeah, that's actually a very good thing. Typically, most writers have to, I guess, write more. But for me, like we actually had to take stuff out because it was getting too long. So
that's when you just make another chapter.
Well, I am having I may or may not be having a bonus chapter.
Ooh.
Breaking news.
Heard it first here. I'm intrigued. I'm going to buy it. I want to read.
Good.
I want to read it. So I'm excited. How do people get a hold of you if they want to hire you as a coach? I always think hire is like the wrong word, but it's pretty much hiring you as a coach.
If anyone is interested in the letter burning exercise, maybe that's another way to kind of get insight in terms of like what I do. I can provide you with a link, and they can go and pick that up. It's there's no upsells, nothing, salesy. It's literally like, hey, you put in your email address and contact details, and you get the guide, you get the exercise. So, of course, I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and things like that. So,
awesome. Hey, nothing easier than clicking on a link. We do it all day anyways, right?
Oh, yes.
I commend you for where you are today. This was not an easy journey for you, and you are doing fantastic from what I see.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do take pride in where I'm at. So that's probably one of the most popular comments that I do get is just how really aware and really in tune I am as a person. And this is another aspect of my journey too, being a man, and being vulnerable. And that's another aspect of, I think, sharing my story is being a man and being vulnerable and things like that. I always get comments in terms of like, so many people say, man, like, you really have put in so much inner work. And I'm just like, yep, I know. Thank you.
Yep, I lived it. Yeah, but I mean, think about it. Your life could have taken such a different turn.
Yeah, I agree. There's even other ways that it could have gone in various directions that people aren't aware of. There was a legitimate chance that there's a real threat that I wouldn't have grown up with my siblings. So I explain that in the book too, like how that came about and what happened with that. But, we were nearly split apart. And I can tell you firsthand that had I not grown up with my siblings, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I probably would have taken my life years ago. And so, that right there alone probably did a lot of, saving.
Right. I mean, you need comfort. You need other people who understand what you've been through. They understand. They were on the journey with you. So it's very important.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have anything else? Give you the floor.
No.
Cool. Well, I'll make sure I put the links in the bottom of the show notes. I'm so happy that you came on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Make sure to share this episode with somebody that you think could benefit from it. Links are at the bottom of the show notes, along with my links. You're going to want to make sure that you're following me on some kind of social media because I got quite a few big changes coming. So you're going to want to be looking for that. All right, you guys, we'll talk crime another time. Bye.